My husband announced my pregnancy. After we tried to escape from my sister-in-law, she found us and burned our house to the ground. I always knew that Cassie was trouble, but I had no idea just how far she could go. Now that her ridiculous drama has escalated into poisoning and a criminal investigation, I realize I severely underestimated her hatred. But let's start from the beginning. I've been married to Alex for 7 years and everything between us has been great. Except for his sister, Cassie. She is a walking disaster. Toxic, manipulative, poisoning everything she touches. I saw it from the moment we met, but like an idiot I tried to maintain a good relationship with her. Big mistake. Cassie constantly dragged negativity into our lives. Before I came along, Alex had dated one of her friends. He wasn't really into her, but he went along with it because Cassie pressured him. After they broke up, she kept trying to set him up with other friends. Then I showed up and she went into sabotage mode. At first it was harmless whining. Did you know his ex is in Paris now? She's doing so well. Or, I ran into Mel today and invited her to dinner, you don't mind, right? But it escalated. Every family dinner turned into a reunion with one of Alex's exes. Every social media post I made, she was the first to view it. If a man commented, she'd run straight to Alex and whine about my indecency. We laughed it off at first, but it got worse. When we got engaged, Cassie lost it. Everyone was celebrating, raising their glasses, and she just got up and walked out. Then she called Alex, sobbing hysterically that she should have been the first to know because she was the most important woman in his life. And then she sent me a message. I won't let you ruin my brother's life. I'm watching you. I read it, smirked, and left it on read. That enraged her even more. She started ignoring me while still inserting herself into every wedding detail, criticizing the dress, the venue, the colors. When I finally told her she was uninvited, she acted like I had stabbed her in the heart. Alex backed me up, so Cassie had no choice but to fake an apology. I ignored her again. At our wedding, she showed up in a black dress with a veil, like she was at a funeral. She walked around sighing dramatically about losing her brother. Eventually, Alex's parents kicked her out. After the wedding, I avoided her like the plague. When our son was born, I forbade her from coming near him. She protested, but Alex stood by me. That's when she switched tactics. She tried to play the doting aunt. We let her see our son, and at first she acted normal. But that was just the calm before the storm. One day, during a family dinner, Cassie randomly asked, "Did you guys sign a prenup?" Alex said no. She scoffed. "Well, you know how common cheating is these days." I frowned. "What do you mean by that?" And that's when she dropped the bomb. "You carry a change of clothes everywhere. We all know what that means." Then she smirked and joked that our son doesn't even look like Alex. The air in the room turned heavy. Alex's face went red with rage. He glared at her and said, "You're not a mother and you never will be. Thank God, because no child deserves a mother like you." Silence. Cassie burst into tears, but Alex didn't even flinch. After that, we cut her off completely. No calls, no visits. His parents supported us. We thought that was the end of it, until she showed up at Alex's birthday party with a heartfelt apology. And that's when things took a turn for the worse. Much worse. The night of Alex's birthday party was supposed to be a celebration. Good food, laughter, family, and the perfect moment to share our big news. We were expecting our second child. But of course Cassie had other plans. She arrived uninvited, draped in false humility, smiling too much, hugging too tightly. I could feel the fake warmth radiating off her. She apologized, publicly, loudly, as if to prove she had changed. She claimed therapy had opened her eyes, made her realize how cruel she had been to me. I wanted to believe her. Almost did. Until she handed me that damn plate. Cassie personally served me a dish of shrimp pasta, a suspiciously grand gesture. I didn't think much of it until I remembered. I was deathly allergic to shrimp. My stomach twisted. I looked at her face, but she only smiled sweetly. Was it an accident? A genuine mistake? Or something much, much worse? Before I could make a decision, Jamie, her husband, walked over, congratulating us on our pregnancy. He saw I hadn't touched my food and offered to take the plate. Distracted by conversation, I handed it over. He took a bite. 5 minutes later, he was on the ground, choking. People screamed. Chairs toppled over. My mother-in-law called for an ambulance as Jamie's body convulsed. Cassie shrieked, pushing past everyone to get to him. I sat frozen in shock, my heart hammering in my chest. That plate was meant for me. Paramedics rushed Jamie to the hospital and the police were called. My hands were shaking as I pieced it all together. Cassie had poisoned me, or at least tried to. And now her own husband was paying the price. Alex stood beside me, gripping my arm. "Tell them," he whispered. "Tell them she gave you that plate." I swallowed hard. My voice felt stuck in my throat, but I managed to force the words out. "The plate was meant for me." Cassie turned, her face pale. "You're lying," she hissed. "You think I'd try to kill you?" The security cameras at my in-laws' house didn't lie. We reviewed the footage and there it was, Cassie handing me the plate, watching me expectantly. The slow, deliberate way she placed it in front of me. The way she turned, a satisfied smirk barely visible on her face before walking away. Alex's parents were devastated. His father, usually calm, exploded in rage. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted at Cassie. "You tried to poison a pregnant woman, your own brother's wife?" Cassie crumbled under the pressure, sobbing, making excuses. It wasn't supposed to be serious. Just enough to make her sick, not to kill her. Disgust twisted in my gut. That was her defense. The police weren't as forgiving. They arrested Cassie on the spot. Jamie, recovering in the hospital, pressed charges the moment he regained consciousness. And just like that, she was facing trial for attempted poisoning, endangerment, and food tampering. But the real shock came a few days later. Cassie was pregnant. She called Alex from jail, crying, begging him to talk to their parents, to help her get out. "I'm having a baby, Alex. My daughter doesn't deserve to be born in prison. You have to help me." But Alex didn't budge. His voice was ice. "You could have killed my wife. You could have killed my child. You don't deserve to be a mother." Jamie filed for divorce the same week. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but something in my gut told me this nightmare wasn't over yet. Cassie might be behind bars, but she wasn't done with us. Not by a long shot. Cassie being locked away should have brought peace. It should have been over. But nightmares don't end just because you turn on the lights. Something inside me told me she wasn't done. Jamie recovered quickly, though emotionally he was shattered. The divorce papers had been sent, and he had made it clear he wanted nothing to do with Cassie anymore. My in-laws were equally devastated, though their loyalty to their daughter made it hard for them to cut her off completely. "Alex, he was done. I'm forgiving." And honestly, I didn't blame him. But the real problem started when strange things began happening. First, it was small. A package arrived at our doorstep with no return address. Inside was a baby onesie, pure white, with the words "Soon, you'll understand" printed across the front in red stitching. My stomach twisted at the sight of it, and Alex immediately threw it away. We both told ourselves it was just some sick coincidence, maybe someone from Cassie's old life playing a prank. Then my car alarm went off in the middle of the night. I looked outside, expecting to see an animal or a prankster, but instead my driver's side window had been shattered. Nothing was stolen, nothing was touched, just broken glass and the feeling of eyes watching me from the darkness. Alex was furious. He called the police, but without evidence there was nothing they could do. We changed the locks, installed security cameras, and stayed on high alert. But the unease only grew. Then the letters started. Handwritten notes, left in our mailbox with no postage, meaning someone had delivered them directly. The first one read, "Families should stay together. Don't push me away." The second one, "You can ignore me, but I will never forget." The third, "Blood ties are forever." I felt like I was suffocating. Every noise at night, every unexpected knock at the door made my heart jump into my throat. Alex tried to comfort me, telling me Cassie was still behind bars and that this was just some leftover madness from her past, someone trying to scare us. But I wasn't convinced. Then one evening my mother-in-law called, her voice trembling. "Cassie's out." I felt my blood turn to ice. "What do you mean she's out?" "They granted her bail pending trial. She's already been released." I turned to Alex, my hands shaking as I whispered the words. His face darkened. "She wouldn't dare," he muttered. "She wouldn't." A loud bang at the front door made me jump. My heart pounded as I looked at Alex, his expression mirroring my fear. Another bang. This time louder. More aggressive. Alex grabbed the baseball bat from beside the couch, motioning for me to stay back. My breath was caught in my throat as he moved to the door, peeking through the peephole. "Who is it?" I whispered. Alex's grip on the bat tightened. He didn't say a word. Just slowly, carefully, he unlocked the door and pulled it open. And there she was. Cassie. Standing on our porch, looking ragged, her hair a mess, her eyes wide and wild. She smiled. A slow, unsettling smile that made my skin crawl. "Miss me?" she whispered. Alex didn't hesitate. He slammed the door shut right in her face and locked it. A second later, a loud, shrill laugh echoed from outside, followed by the sound of her footsteps retreating into the night. The next morning we filed a restraining order. But I knew deep down that this wasn't over. Cassie was back. And she was just getting started. Filing the restraining order should have made me feel safer, but it didn't. Cassie was unpredictable, unhinged. She wasn't the type to back down just because of a piece of paper. Alex and I stayed on high alert. We double-checked every lock before bed, kept the security cameras rolling, and never left the house alone. But paranoia was creeping in. Every flicker of movement outside the window made my stomach clench. Every phone call from an unknown number made my hands sweat. Then one night things escalated. It was around 2 a.m. when the baby monitor crackled to life. Static filled the room and then breathing. Slow. Heavy. My blood ran cold. Alex shot up beside me. What the hell was that? I grabbed the monitor, my hands trembling as I switched the channel. More static. Then a whisper. "You can't keep me away forever." I bolted out of bed, my heart hammering in my chest. Alex grabbed the bat again and sprinted down the hall to our son's room. I followed close behind, barely able to breathe. The door was slightly ajar. My fingers shook as I pushed it open. The crib was empty. I let out a strangled scream, but then, a noise from the closet. A soft whimper. Alex yanked the door open and there he was. Our son, bundled in his blankets, wide-eyed and terrified. Cassie wasn't there. But the window, wide open, the curtains billowing in the night breeze. Alex cursed under his breath and pulled our son into his arms. I ran to the window, peering outside, but there was nothing. Just darkness and the rustling of leaves. The police arrived within minutes. They searched the house, the yard, the surrounding streets. Nothing. No sign of Cassie. But the footprints in the flower bed outside our son's window told us everything we needed to know. She had been here. The officers took our statements, but their expressions were grim. Without actual evidence that she entered the home, the restraining order doesn't do much, one of them admitted. She's playing it smart. Smart. That word sent chills down my spine. Cassie had always been manipulative, always knew how to twist things to her advantage. She wasn't just some deranged ex-family member throwing tantrums. She was calculating, methodical. The next day we packed our bags and left town. Alex's parents had a cabin about 3 hours away, deep in the woods. No neighbors. No traffic. Just trees and silence. We needed to disappear at least until Cassie was locked up for good. But isolation wasn't the comfort I thought it would be. The first night the house was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Every sound felt amplified. Every creak of the old wood sent shivers down my spine. Then at exactly 3 a.m., a loud thump came from outside. Alex and I bolted upright. He grabbed his bat and I reached for my phone, my fingers fumbling to call the police. Another thump. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Alex crept to the window and peeked outside. His body tensed. "Oh hell no," he muttered. I inched closer and looked. A single Polaroid was taped to the front door. My breath caught in my throat. Alex moved cautiously, unlocking the door just enough to snatch the photo before slamming it shut again. He turned it over and I felt my knees go weak. It was a picture of us. Asleep in bed. Taken from outside the cabin window. Cassie had found us. The sight of that Polaroid drained the blood from my face. Alex stood stiff beside me, gripping the edges of the photo so hard his knuckles turned white. I could barely breathe, the realization sinking in. Cassie was here. Watching. Waiting. Alex moved first. He locked the door, bolted the windows and grabbed his phone. "We're calling the cops. Now." I nodded, still frozen, staring at the picture. We looked so peaceful. Sleep, oblivious. Vulnerable. I thought we had escaped, thought we were safe. How wrong I had been. The operator assured us that officers were on their way, but we both knew how this worked. By the time anyone arrived, she'd be gone. Cassie was always a step ahead, always slipping away like a shadow before anyone could pin her down. We sat in silence, listening for movement outside. The minutes dragged. Every creak of the cabin sent my heart into my throat. Alex held the bat like a weapon, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on the door. Then a sound. A soft, rhythmic tapping against the window. Pip, pip, pip. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I would see. And there she was. Cassie. Standing in the dark, inches from the glass, her face partially obscured by the reflection of the porch light. Her eyes were locked onto mine and she was smiling. Not a forced, crazy grin. No, this was worse. It was calm. Controlled. As if she had already won. I gasped, stumbling back. Alex cursed under his breath and shot up, moving toward the door. But before he could get there, Cassie's voice cut through the silence. You didn't think you could just leave me behind, did you? Her voice was muffled through the glass, but I could hear the amusement in it. We're family. Blood ties are forever. Get the hell out of here, Cassie. Alex barked. The cops are coming. She tilted her head, unfazed. Oh, Alex. You always did follow the rules, didn't you? But rules don't apply to me. They never have. Then she reached into her jacket. My breath hitched. Was she armed? Alex raised the bat higher, muscles coiled like a spring. But instead of a weapon, Cassie pulled out something else. A lighter. And she flicked it on. No, I whispered. My stomach turned to ice. Cassie glanced down and for the first time I noticed something at her feet. A dark trail leading from the base of the porch. Gasoline. I told you, she said, her smile widening. You can't get rid of me. Then she dropped the lighter. Flames erupted instantly, licking up the wooden steps of the porch. Fire spread along the gasoline trail, curling toward the walls of the cabin like hungry fingers. Alex yanked me backward as the heat surged forward. We have to get out, he shouted. The fire spread faster than I could process. The curtains caught. The smoke thickened. We barely had time to grab our son from his crib before we were forced to the back door. The moment we burst outside, the cabin behind us was swallowed in a wall of flames. Cassie was gone. Sirens screamed in the distance, but it was too late. The home that was supposed to be our sanctuary was reduced to an inferno in minutes. We stood there, helpless, watching it burn. The police found no trace of Cassie. She had vanished just like always. And that's when I realized, this would never be over. Not until one of us was dead.